Okay, Francis, over to you.
Hello, friends. Welcome to this 51st webinar on the Secret Doctrine. This webinar series is available on makara.us under the subheadings Moria Federation webinars, then webinar series in progress, as shown here. All episodes of this and the Secret Teaching series are also now available on YouTube. Just do a search for Francis Donald and your Secret Teachings or Secret Doctrine. Okay, this month in our reading of Old Diary Leaves, Colonel Olcott reflects on his 10-year association with HPB as the new year of 1884 begins. Can we get a reader, please?
Sure, I'll start off. The eventful year 1884 that now opens out before us is the 10th since HPB and I first met at that Vermont farmhouse. What a succession of stirring events and picturesque experience had followed each other throughout those 10 years. How immeasurably had our field widened. How great the effect upon ourselves and upon others. The epoch opened upon us amid the weird nightly seances of farmer mediums with materialized, or rather objectified, phantoms of the astral world stalking before us in the gloom, sometimes nodding in dumb show, sometimes whispering, and anon even shouting their commonplace messages to the living. Its close finds us settled in a noble Indian bungalow amid enthusiastic Asiatic friends, every corner of India familiar to me, our society's name known throughout the world, and its chartered branches established in various countries. Truly a chapter of romance.
Thank you, Bial. Okay, new reader.
Lynn, please.
The last of the visiting delegates to the 8th TS anniversary had hardly left the house before I resumed my official wanderings. On 4th January, I sailed for Bimlapatan on the Coromandel coast, the nearest port to Vizianagaram, to visit the Maharaj of which ancient Zemindari, autonomous provincial ruler, I had been invited. Among my fellow passengers was a Scotch gentleman endowed with a second sight, and like the Swiss philosopher Sotki, compelled at times against his own wish to see the life histories of strangers pass before his inner vision in phantom pictures. Everybody who has read the Dale Owen or in Moser knows the story of how Zoki silenced a braggart infidel, one of a party of student pedestrians whom he encountered at an inn among the Alps.
Okay, and finally.
Gary, can you read that for us, please?
The feather-brained youths drank deeply and grew very noisy and impertinent. A quiet man at a small table in the corner attracted their attention, and presently the loud-voiced braggart in question, who had denied the existence of God and the soul in the most vehement language, turned to the quiet man and challenged him to defend the opposite view. Choker, for it was he, saw as in a moving picture the whole of the boaster's life spread out before him, and replied by asking him whether he would admit the existence of a soul if he, the speaker, should tell him the secrets of his past career. The young man laughed at the proposition to scorn and dared Shocker to expose all, even the most important of his secrets. Thereupon the latter proceeded to do so, and among other disgraceful scenes described one where the young fellow was robbing his master's till. The bursting of such a bomb, it may be supposed, put a stop to the idle debate, and the philosopher left the room in quiet dignity, unmolested.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, Last month, we started our analysis of the last verse of Stanza V, which reads, the Lapika circumscribed the triangle, verse 1, vertical line, or the figure 1, the Q, the second one, and the pentacle within the A circle. It is the ring called Pass Not, for those who descend and ascend, as also for those who during the Kalpa are progressing towards the great day, be with us. Thus were formed the Arupa and the Rupa, the formless world and the world of forms. From one light, 7 lights. From each of the 7 times 7 lights. The wheels watch the ring. This is one of the main verses from Stanza 5, though there's number 2 and number 4 also quite important. So let's pick up where we left off last time, which is in the middle of paragraph 2 of commentary. So could we get a reader to reread this section of the paragraph, please? And we'll go on from there.
Michelle, can you read that for us, please?
Sure, the middle section that starts with moreover.
That's right.
Okay. Moreover, in occult metaphysics, there are properly speaking, 2 ones, the one on the unreachable plane of absoluteness and infinity, on which no speculation is possible. The second one on the plane of emanations, the former can neither emanate nor be divided, as it is eternal, absolute, and immutable. The second being, so to speak, the reflection of the first one, for it is the logos, or Ishwara, in the universe of illusion, can do all this. It emanates from itself as the upper Sephirothal triad emanates the lower 7 Sephiroth and the 7 rays, or Dhyan Chohans. In other words, the homogeneous becomes the heterogeneous. The protyle differentiates into the elements, but these, unless they return into their primal element, can never cross beyond the laya, or 0 point.
Thank you. Okay, last time we talked about the first one, the quote, one on the unreachable plane of absoluteness and infinity, which took us all the way back to stanza 1. We'll start this session by taking a look at the quote, second one on the plane of emanations, which HBB tells us is the reflection of the first one. The word reflection is often used to underscore the illusory nature of all manifestation. Even for this, the highest of all illusory beings, the second one. Could we get a reader for this passage, please?
Greg, can you read that for us, please?
Yes, the existences belonging to every plane of being up to the highest Dhyan Chohans are in degree of the nature of shadows cast by a magic lantern on a colorless screen, but all things are relatively real, for the cognizer is also a reflection, and the things cognized are therefore as real to him as himself.
Thank you, Greg. Any thoughts or questions about this idea? Okay, next, it emanates from itself, the 7 rays, or Dhyan Chohans. This idea of self-emanation is an important one, self-creation at these highest levels of being. So again, HPB is giving us a review of an earlier unfoldment. In fact, this whole section has a lot of review in it. This time from stanza 4, but rather than rereading the entire stanza, let's just take a look at HPB's description of stanza 4, which gives us a good idea of the nature of the second one and its sevenfold emanation. Can we get a reader, please?
Martha, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. Stanza 4 shows the differentiation of the germ of the universe into the septenary hierarchy of conscious divine powers, who are the active manifestations of the one supreme energy. They are the framers, shapers, and ultimately the creators of all the manifested universe, in the only sense in which the name creator is intelligible. They inform and guide it. They are the intelligent beings who adjust and control evolution, embodying in themselves those manifestations of the one law, which we know as the laws of nature. Generically, they are known as the Dhyan Chohans, though each of the various groups has its own designation in the Secret Doctrine. This stage of evolution is spoken of in Hindu mythology as the creation of the gods.
Okay, not creation of the world, but creation of the gods, who then in turn are the creators. Any thoughts about this? Any questions? Okay, next. It emanates from itself, as the upper Sephirothal triad emanates the lower seven Sephiroth. So here's a illustration of the 10 Sephiroth, and you have the top three, which are the creative aspect that emanate the lower seven. Could we get a reader for this, please?
Kirsten, can you read that for us, please? I see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I had muted myself here. The deity, the ever-invisible presence, says the Zohar, manifests itself through the 10 Sephiroth, which are its radiating witnesses. The deity is like the sea from which outflows a stream called wisdom, the waters of which fall into a lake named intelligence. From the basin, like 7 channels issue the 7 Sephiroth for 10 equals 7. The decade contains 4 unities and 3 binaries.
Binaries, that means sets of 2. Okay, with its 4 unities and 3 binaries, you can see I've illustrated those here. This passage gives us a unique way of equating 7 and 10, perhaps fostering a more esoteric understanding than the usual 3 above 7, 3 above and 7 below, focusing as it does on the generational aspect of the 3 pairs and the identity aspect of the 4 ones, which is, in total make up the tree of life. This generational quality of the 6 is also illustrated by the 6-pointed star. You have, each of the opposites, just like you have the opposites in the tree of life, and each opposite is on, or a point on the opposite triangle. So you have that, the 2 triangles and the 6-pointed star are that fundamental opposition. And then you have each opposite point participating in a point of each of the opposite triangles. So, and that's, I think, a illustrative way of describing the energies going on here. And furthermore, you have the feminine side and the masculine side, and you have the masculine triangle and the feminine triangle. So there's a close correlation in the 2 ideas. The Keter, or the crown, the one, would be the point in the center. Okay. Any thoughts or questions? Next. In other words, the homogeneous becomes the heterogeneous. The protyle differentiates into the elements. Obviously, these are not the elements of the periodic table, but rather the numeral elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth, which themselves diversify at each level of descent into matter. Protyle is a Greek word for noumenal substance, often used to describe the unity of these 5 elements. And finally, in this passage, we have, but these, unless they return to their primal element, can never cross beyond the Leia or 0 point. With this last statement, we come full circle. Differentiated form life, no matter how evolved, cannot pass the ring pass not circumscribed by the Lapika, as described in the first sentence of the verse.
Francis?
Yeah.
Carrie wants to know, might there be a connection between the 0 point and 0 point energy, now so much under recent scientific examination?
Yeah, I think it's very possible that there is a veil there. See, the whole thing with scientific examination is the need to verify through instrumentation some, because otherwise it becomes theoretical science, which is very much on the waxing stronger all the time. My favorite being Bohm's theories of an implicate universe, which you could say cross that threshold into the 0 point of energy. But I'm, Carrie, to be honest, I'm not that versed in this theory. So if you want to unmute and describe it a bit, I might be able to.
I think I'm as ignorant as you are about it.
Oh.
But I think for the last 30 years, well, it would seem that it could be the source of free energy, in fact. But it seems to me that there is a connection, this crossover point that Blavatsky is talking about. It seems to be the same thing to me, but
yeah, it's interesting because she moves into a broader use of this idea of the Leia or 0 point in the next paragraph, talking about how, scientists, etc., all have their own form of this ring pass not that they're unwilling to cross. So, you can use the concept of this circumscribed ring, to describe any natural barrier between the higher and lower of whatever discipline, or say another way, the source or noumenon theory that then demonstrates outside the ring pass not. But specifically, this ring is the ring of where within the ring is only the absolute, only, what it says up here, the unreachable plane of the absolute, with no form aspect at all. Even the form aspect of the third logos is not in or of that. Any demonstration or the taking on of form stands outside this ring. Okay.
Samuel's got his hand up. Go ahead, Samuel.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. The ring pass not. My idea about it whenever I get to that part when I'm reading the Secret Doctrine, as you said earlier, it is it will be in my mind, it will be the natural barrier that each of us have. So regardless of what your status is, whether it is a Dhyan Chohan or a Dhyani Buddha or an occultist, everyone will have it in a material sense. Even a physicist or scientist who's trying to go outside our solar system will naturally reach their own barrier. They will not be able to, as hard as they may try, they will have a limit. So it's a limit that we all face. And then the part where they they talk about the metaphysical. I think the way that I understand it, while it is true that the barrier is there, but at a certain level, it seems to be present with us at all times. So once you exist within space, it is there. I don't know. That's just how I understand it.
Yeah. Well, there's, as you say, there's a generic ring pass knot that can be applied, even for instance, for the initiations, there's a ring pass knot at each initiation that you cannot cross that except through initiation, but you can cross it at some point. This ring pass knot, on the other hand, is not crossable until what's called the day be with us, when all is resolved through that period called pralaya back into pure spirit, and the form world is no more. So it's a very specific use, as is described here in this first sentence, of a ring pass knot, right? And that's what she's describing here in this last sentence. Unless they return to their prime element, can never cross beyond this. Okay.
And Greg has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
About 3 to 5 years ago, there was a movie that came out that spoke about energy, and it wasn't really advertised on theater like, but it was a public kind of a donation service, also related in part to Nassim Haramein's theories. But the way I understand 0 point energy from a scientific point of view is I too am really connected and amazed with the Bohm theories, because I really feel that there's a lot of deep truth, and that the way Bohm describes it, even though it's primarily theoretical, that there is a relationship, as you were saying, Francis. But the one thing about 0 point is that I think it's related to the inherent potential energy of empty space, essentially. So somehow, and they've created machines that can actually access 0 point, and they're even talking that they could be our new form of thing, but modern oil companies and the rest of the other kinds of energy competitors who want to continue to make money would rather you not go to electricity, but there is a device that's already been, I think, created, and it's in use in certain parts of Canada and other places, that's primarily fixed on bringing out 0 point energy directly from space itself, or in the inherent material resonance with space itself. Anyway, that's just something to,
yeah, it's interesting. And thanks for the update. That's it's interesting. Anything that crosses the line between the seen and the unseen is a fascinating idea, and there is a ring at that point. I'll have to look into it more to understand it better. Okay, anyone else have a question or thought?
No, that's all I see right now.
Okay, let's take a look at the long footnote referenced by the statement, the second being, so to speak, the reflection of the first one, for it is the Logos or Ishvara in the universe of illusion, can do all this, right? And what he's referring to, let's go back, is what can it do? We can do everything. Oh yeah, here we go. The former, the one, can neither emanate nor be divided, right? And the second one can do all this and does emanate and divide itself. It's self-generating. So that's what the reference is to. So let's take a look at this footnote. Reader, please.
Okay. Karen, can you read that for us, please?
This metaphysical tenet can hardly be better described than by Mr. Subaru in his Bhagavad Gita lectures. Mula Prakriti, the veil of Parabrahman, acts as the one energy through the Logos, or Isvara. Now, Parabrahman is the one essence from which starts into existence a center of energy, which I shall for the present call the Logos. It is called the Verbum by the Christians, and it is the divine Christos who is eternal in the bosom of his Father. It is called Avalokitesvara by the Buddhists. In almost every doctrine, they have formulated the existence of a center of spiritual energy, which is unborn and eternal, and which exists in the bosom of Parabrahman at the time of Pralaya and starts as a center of conscious energy at the time of cosmic activity. For, as the lecturer premised by saying, Parabrahm is not this or that, it is not even consciousness, as it cannot be related to matter or anything conditioned. It is not ego, nor is it non-ego, not even Atma, but verily the one source of all manifestations and modes of existence.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so Subaru, referenced here, was an influential Hindu theosophist and author, especially famous for his books Esoteric Buddhism and The Occult World, the latter which we read from a couple of sessions ago. Here's the title page of his lecture on the Bhagavad Gita, quoted in the footnote by HPB and often referenced in the Secret Doctrine. Michael Robbins recently said that he believes Subaru was at the same level of initiate consciousness as HPB, and that they came in together to do their work in India. One on the Indian side and one on the European, Russian/American side. You may remember from old diary leaves that they were often in each other's company. In fact, he was in the same photo as HPB and Damodar. Remember reading about Damodar, who just suddenly disappeared, ended up being, he'd been called by his master, that's this guy here. And here's Subaru, and here's HPB. Here's a very odd photo of HPB, and here's Subaru. Okay, anyway. Let's take a closer look at the quote from his lecture series on the Gita. First, Mula Prakriti, the veil of Parabrahman, acts as a one energy through the Logos, or Ishvara. You have to remember that when he wrote this, the Secret Doctrine didn't yet exist. So his work was revelatory and cutting edge theosophy when it came out. Okay, the concept of Mula Prakriti was introduced back on page 10 of the Secret Doctrine. It is undifferentiated matter at its most primordial or noumenal level, also called the female aspect of the creative cause. Could we get a reader for this theosophical glossary?
Scott, can you read that for us, please?
Mula Prakriti, Sanskrit, from Mula, root, plus Prakriti, nature, root nature. undifferentiated cosmic substance in its highest form, the abstract substance or essence of what later, through various differentiations, become the Prakritis, the various forms of matter, concrete or sublimate. It is pre-cosmic root substance, the root principle of the world stuff and all in the world. That aspect of Parabrahman or space, which underlies all the ethereally and materially objective planes or space of universal nature. It is again unmanifested primordial stuff or substance, divine spiritual, undifferentiated, and therefore indestructible, eternal, parentless, and abstractly the mother, space itself, and the vehicle, lining, or alter ego of Parabrahman. It is, quote, the noumenon of the undifferentiated cosmic matter. It is not matter as we know it, but the spiritual essence of matter, and is co-eternal and even one with space in its abstract sense. Root nature is also the source of the subtle, invisible properties, invisible matter. It is the soul, so to say, of the one infinite spirit. The Hindus call it Mula Prakriti and say that it is the primordial substance, which is the basis of the upati, or vehicle of every phenomenon, whether physical, mental, or psychic. It is the source from which Akasha radiates, unquote. Mula Prakriti, along with Parabrahman, are the two aspects of the one universal principle, which is unconditioned to any human conception, and similarly, eternal. Parabrahman is unconditional and undifferentiated reality, and Mula Prakriti is its veil, or inseparable vehicle. Mula Prakriti stands in the same relation to Parabrahman as the Kabbalistic life of space does to Ein Sof. Similarly, on lower planes, it is what Pradhana is to Brahman, or what Prakriti is to Brahma.
Thanks, Scott. Any thoughts or questions? Of note
Yes.
here. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Efrosini says, oops, wait a minute. I think I missed one above her. Okay. First off, Greg put a link in there to everyone on regarding the 0-point energy generation. So if anyone wants to look that up, that's in the chat.
Great,
And then
thank you.
Samuel says this ring pass knot is being represented to us as it would appear to the different classes of intellectual, spiritual, and intellectual quasi-spiritual beings in our cosmos. To the superb spiritual mind, meaning a man on the level of enlightenment, it would appear as emptiness or void. But then that's just my intuition.
Okay.
And Efrosini says Mula Prakriti and Protyle Prima Materia are the same.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You find them in different references and in different literature, but ultimately that's it. It's root nature in both cases, right? Okay. Of note here is that Mula Prakriti is not separate from, but is rather an aspect of Parabrahman. Yeah. Even though Parabrahman has no aspects, it is part and parcel with, and that it is space itself, the quote, vehicle, lining, or alter ego of Parabrahman. This is not outer space, but rather abstract space, which is, quote, the source of the subtle, invisible properties in visible matter. Right? Most surprising for me is the idea that, quote, it is the soul, so to say, of the one infinite spirit. In the same way, we might surmise that the soul is a vehicle for the monad in one's, in the constitution of mankind.
Francis?
Yeah.
Carrie wants to know, what is the painting depicting?
Oh, it's depicting Mula Prakriti, of course, which is undepictable. It's almost, it's a complete metaphor, right? And you could say that it sits upon or behind the realm of substance, which is the vehicle here, right? You cannot have a correct or accurate depiction of Mula Prakriti because it is in by its very nature without feature, right? And that is indicated by first of all the feminine aspect, because it's the noumenal material, and the dark or the indigo quality of space. But everything else is, I would say, fanciful, though I'm sure that, if you looked into the Hindu meanings of these various symbols, you could get some further indication. There's this, I'm just noticing now, actually, these look like little heads. They're little heads on this string of which would represent cycles of existence, right? So you could say that Mula Prakriti substands all cycles of existence. It is, it is one with the pralaic idea of when manifestation becomes non-specific, then Mula Prakriti is the substantive realm.
Francis?
Yeah.
Greg says she reminds me of Kali in many ways.
Yeah, she has that. And, there's, Kali is a first ray destroyer goddess in her exoteric aspect. But you have to remember that Ramakrishna was devoted to Kali, and so there's much more to her than just this destructive aspect. The connection would be at the noumenal level of their existence, but Mula Prakriti, it would be of Mula Prakriti that that Kali would come forth. She would be even Kali's mother, because all emanates from this noumenal source of substance, right?
And then Liesel says they also represent the 108 names of the Divine Mother at that level that you chant on the mala beads. And she says, yes, Kali is one of the 108 names.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's the unified field behind these 108, right? Yeah, 108 is a really interesting number. I won't go too far into it, but 1 and 8 are 9, which is the sum total. But then you have that 0 in the center, which represents really, in a way, this Mula Prakriti, right? Which is the source or all substance. Even the circle that the beads, which are heads, they're very funny heads too. If you have a big computer screen, you can see them, make up, right? Which are cycles of existence. Right. Yeah, anyone else?
Yes, Michelle says, would Mula Prakriti relate to Bina form on the feminine pillar of the tree of life? She says this indigo color represents this Sephiroth as well.
Yeah, it would, but it's Bina would be a much lower iteration. It would be the second level of Ayin, right? You have Ayin, Ayin Sof, and Ayin Sof Aur, right? And so the Ayin Sof Aur is that emanation from which Kether is has its being, right? And then from Kether you have the male aspect. Out of Kether you have the duality of Chokma and Bina. So Bina is the is a creator God. It's often associated with Jehovah too. So it's related in the sense that it's a material source, but it's at a much more manifested level. Anyone else?
No, that's all I see right now.
Okay. Next up. Now, Parabrahman is the one essence from which starts into existence a center of energy, which I shall for the present call Logos. The stanza version of the phrase starts into existence is darkness radiates light, and light drops one solitary ray into the mother deep. The mother deep, by the way, would be this quality of Mula Prakriti that we've been describing. And Subaru's Logos is none other than Oya Ohu the Younger, which is the third Logos, which is also Avalokiteshvara, which is also Quan Shai Yin, and many, many other names, right? Brahman. Okay, next. It is called the Verbum by the Christians, and it is the divine Christos who is eternal in the bosom of his Father. Logos and verbum are synonymous, though the verbum is considered to be a feminine aspect of the logos. In fact, later in her commentary, she really gets into this idea of the of Vash and the word and the feminine aspect as verbum. The divine Christos is a cosmic being and is thus to the Christ something like what the central spiritual sun is to Surya, our visible sun. It's the principle on cosmic level. It's the Christ principle on cosmic levels, the divine Christos. The next sentence relates the concept of Mula Prakriti to the Buddhist Avalokiteshvara, highlighting the universality of this doctrine. And the last sentence describes the unconditioned nature of Brahman, which we've looked at some length. Thoughts or questions on anything in this footnote? Okay. Next up, can we get a reader?
Vivian, can you read that for us, please?
Hence the allegory, the Lipika, separate the world or plane of pure spirit from that of matter. Those who descend and ascend, the incarnating monads, and men striving towards purification and ascending, but still not having quite reached the goal, may cross the circle of the past not, only on the day be with us, that day when man, freeing himself from the trammels of ignorance and recognizing fully the non-separateness of the ego within his personality, erroneously regarded as his own, from the universal ego, anima supra mundi, merges thereby into the one essence to become not only one with us, the manifested universal lives which are one life, but that very life itself.
Thank you. Who was that just read? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Vivian.
Okay, thanks. Any thoughts or questions right off the bat on this paragraph? Okay. First, hence the allegory. The Lipika separate the world or plane of pure spirit from that of matter. In the passage from the Secret Doctrine dialogues that we looked at last time, HPB tells us, quote, "It is an allegory and is stated in allegorical language. this enchanted ring or circle. No such ring exists in nature, but there exists the plane of matter and spirit and consciousness. We might surmise that the actual nature of the ring set up by the Lapika is energetic, and in order to pass through, one must, like through a door of initiation, have become one with the energy of the ring, thus equalizing the barrier, which is actually a kind of catch-22 sort of way, is impossible before the pralayic day be with us, since any form, even the highest levels of singular consciousness, prohibits the passing of the ring, this ultimate ring. Next, we learn that descending and ascending is a dual metaphor, applying to both the act of incarnating, disincarnating, as well as to the entire evolutional journey of the monad. Let's read about the day be with us. It's a peculiar term.
Francis?
Yeah.
Liesel says it sounds like the Lord of the Rings in a stepped down way.
In a stepped up way. The Lord of the Rings would be a stepped down way. Yeah. That's fascinating. It's, the one ring that binds them all, but that ring was a ring of evil. This ring would be the ring of ultimate spirituality. And it's the ring that you could say holds them all, or from which all other rings emanate. Interesting analogy, though. I like that. Okay.
And
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Efrosini says the operation of Lapika as a barrier reminds me of the blood-brain barrier, a highly selective, semi-permeable border of cells that prevents solutions and pathogens in the circulating blood from non-selectively crossing into the extracellular fluid of the central nervous system where neurons reside. As above, so below.
Yeah, it's a great example of a physiological ring pass knot, without which, we couldn't survive. And nature is full of those types of ring pass knots, like the barrier between the animal and the human kingdom in terms of diseases, et cetera, which was breached by COVID-19, right? So it's, there's some fascinating exploration that can be done there. Okay, ring pass day be with us. I'm pushing
we started a conversation. Vivian says Tolkien is said to have traveled to Avebury to receive inspiration for his writings. There is a grove of beeches on the crossing of the Michael and Mary ley lines where he would meditate.
Wow, I didn't know that. Well, there's, anybody who's actually read, not just seen, then the movies are great, I thought. But if you've read the books, there's no question that that they really are inspired, soul inspired, I would say. Truly amazing. Not to mention informed by it, a life of exploring various ethnographies, and he was quite the author. Thanks for that.
And Liesel says it is interesting that COVID knocks out the sense of smell, which relates in Hindu Kundalini to the base of the spine, or the mother in her latent aspect.
Huh. Okay. Interesting comment. Anyone else?
I think that's it for right now.
All right, let's get a reader for this passage on the day be with us.
Lynn, can you read that, please?
Day be with us. The Lapikas, karmic recorders of the universe, make a barrier, the so-called ring pass knot, impassable during its existence, but passable through evolution. between the personal ego and the impersonal or cosmic self. The incarnating monads cannot pass this ring until they have, through evolutionary risings and development, become merged once more in the universal or cosmic soul. The Lipikas are directly connected with karma and what the Christians call the Day of Judgment. In the East, it was called the day after Mahamanvantara, or the day be with us. Then everything becomes one. All individualities are merged into one, yet each knowing itself. Then that which to us now is non-consciousness, or the unconscious, will then be absolute consciousness. This is called by the Egyptians the day of come to us, and refers to what the Hindus called Paranirvana, or great night of union in Brahman.
Thank you, Lynn. Thoughts or questions about this? There's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek to this day after Mahamanvantara, right? Of course, there's no days. Mahamanvantara is the entire cycle of existence. That's the Maha part, right? So the day after that, you enter, then you can cross this ring pass on. Then you have the day be with us, right? It's, you could call it a Mahapralaya. And the Egyptians, I love it, call it the day of come to us, right? Different disciplines, same idea. Okay, the beautiful language of the old commentary from A Treatise on Cosmic Fire gives us deeper insight into this concept. Carrie, could you read this for us?
Yes, Francis, I'm so glad you showed us one of your own paintings.
Thank you.
From the nadir to the zenith, from eve unto the day be with us, from the circle of manifestation to the center of pralaic peace, you seen the enveloping blue lost in the flame of achievement. Up from the pit of Maya back to the portals of gold, forth from the gloom and darkness back to the splendor of day, rideth the manifested one, the avatar, bearing the shattered cross. Naught can arrest his return, none can impede his path, for he passeth along the upper way, bearing his people with him. Cometh the dissolution of pain, cometh the end of strife, cometh the merging of the spheres and the blending of the hierarchies. All then is reabsorbed within the orb, the circle of manifestation. The forms that exist in Maya and the flame that devoureth all are garnered by the one who rideth the heavens and entereth into the timeless aeon.
Thank you, Carrie. So I love this phrase, the avatar bearing the shattered cross. There's nothing like the old commentary. Okay. Any thoughts or questions about the day be with us? I'm certain that I won't be able to answer them. Okay. HPB here makes a poignant observation. At the day be with us, we not only merge with the one essence, but we become that very life itself without losing one's sense of self. And in that, we have a hint at the purpose of manifestation, the development of the sense of self, capital S, by the way, while at the same time being merged in the one essence. Because before manifestation starts, you're already merged in the one essence, but it's there's no self-conscious development at that stage.
Okay, Francis. Vivian says This is very moving, making me think of the crucifixion of Christ. And then Samuel has his hand up.
Go ahead. Where you're not coming through, Samuel.
Just got the
There you go.
excellent. Yeah, the part about merging with the debut with us, you can just tell that at that point it's just conjecture, because it will be hard to really know when you are part of all of it to still be able to know any difference. So in my mind, I just think that it's just a kind of logical conjecture.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You know, this is beyond everything we know as well. Let's put it this way. DK says that at the third initiation, which is immeasurably lesser than the quality of consciousness we're talking about here. I mean, it's like, you know, if it's the first inch in a mile, you could say, the third initiation compared to this. But at that point, it's the first time you have any inkling of the deity aspect, and the idea of becoming one with that aspect. Before the third initiation, it's purely thought forms or conjecture, right? So, you know, this is, as I said, immeasurably beyond that, and immeasurably beyond all forms of logic, and is therefore fraught with the problems of language. You know, I actually later, when I analyze the verse itself, I analyze this term, the day be with us, and you can see the limitations of language. I won't get into it now, though. Anyone else?
No, I think that's it right now.
Okay. Okay, next up, the next paragraph goes back to the first sentence of the verse. It's for the first time she seems to jump around in terms of her commentary with a verse. Usually she just goes straight through the verse, but this time she doesn't. So could we get a reader, please?
Scott, can you read that for us, please?
Astronomically, the ring passed not, but the Lupica trace around the triangle, the first one, the cube, the second one, and the pentacle, to circumscribe these figures, is thus shown to contain the symbol of 31415 again, or the coefficient constantly used in mathematical tables, the value of pi, the geometrical figures standing here for numerical figures. According to the general philosophical teachings, this ring is beyond the region of what we call nebulae in astronomy. But this is as erroneous a conception as that of the topography and the descriptions given in Puranic and other exoteric scriptures about the 1008 worlds of the Devaloka worlds and firmaments. There are worlds, of course, in the esoteric as well as in the profane scientific teachings, at such incalculable distances that the light of the nearest of them, which has just reached our modern Chaldees, had left its luminary long before the day on which the words, "Let there be light," were pronounced. But these are no worlds on the Devaloka plane, but in our cosmos.
Okay, thoughts or questions about this? Okay, this part, with this first part. Scott, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. HPB's review continues. You know, we've covered a lot of this previously. Not a problem. You know, it's always good to review. This time with pi, the fundamental irrational, though I prefer the term super rational, number, which represents the potency of the manifesting power of the third logos. symbolized by the diameter, which only seems to divide the indivisible into two parts. But this is an illusion. In fact, it is the defining attribute of the great illusion, and thus the beginning of the heresy of separation. Now, we'll revisit the 31415, the specific numbers of it, when we look at the verse itself at the end. Okay, next. According to the general philosophical teachings, this ring is beyond the region of what are called nebulae or nebula in astronomy, but this is as erroneous a conception as that of the topography and the descriptions given in the Puranic and other exoteric scriptures about the 1,008 worlds of the Devaloka worlds and firmaments. First of all, just notice that now we have another cipher between the 1 and 8, indicating another esoteric function of the potency that this number represents. You have to get away from the idea that these numbers represent sums. You know, if you just added another one, you'd have 1,009. No. That's not what this is about. There's very particular potencies of the combinations of these numbers. We had 108, you know, that's the number of beads on a mala, and then you have 1,008 worlds of the Devaloka world, which is the 1 and 8 representing the sum total, and then these ciphers have very specific purpose, and I can't tell you what that is, but it represents aspect of the unseen realm. Okay, astronomically, the term nebulae means a cloud of gas and dust in which stars are born. That's modern astronomy, right? But in 1888, it meant any indistinct bright area in the sky, because they didn't have telescopes that could resolve these distant nebula, right? So it could be just a distant galaxy. HPB points out that the ring past not circumscribed by the Lepika is not located in physical plane space. I think that's pretty obvious to the esotericists at least. Okay, Devaloka literally means sphere of the Devas, angel spheres, or more colloquially, home of the gods. Later in the Secret Doctrine, HPB describes the 3 higher lokas highlighted in the illustration there. Could we get a reader for this?
I'll read it. When the Maha, I'm hearing something. When the Maha Pralaya arrives, the inhabitants of Svarloka, the upper sphere, disturbed by the conflagration, seek refuge with the Pitris, their progenitors, the Manus, the 7 rishis, the various orders of celestial spirits, and the gods in Maharloka. When the later is reached also, the whole of the above enumerated beings migrate in their turn from Maharloka and repair to Janaloka in their subtile forms, destined to become re-embodied in similar capacities as their former when the world is renewed at the beginning of the succeeding kalpa.
So we get a little detail of what it looks like, but you know, to escape the conflagration, which is just a way of describing physical plane existence, right? At each of these levels, of course, it wouldn't be physical plane at this level, but these are 3 very nominal levels of existence, right? Okay, any thoughts or questions about this? Next up, can we get a reader, please?
Yes, Martha, can you read that, please?
Now, this paragraph gets back to what some of you were bringing up about, you know, other examples of this circumscribed ring, and the whole idea of a ring past not used in other ways. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The chemist goes to the laya or 0 point of the plane of matter with which he deals, and then stops short. The physicist or the astronomer counts by billions of miles beyond the nebulae, and then they also stop short. The semi-initiated occultist will represent this laya point to himself as existing on some plane which, if not physical, is still conceivable to the human intellect. But the full initiate knows that the ring past not is neither a locality, nor can it be measured by distance, but that it exists in the absoluteness of infinity. In this infinity of the full initiate, there is neither height, breadth, nor thickness, but all is fathomless profundity, reaching down from the physical to the para-metaphysical, and using the word down, essential depth, nowhere and everywhere is meant, not depth of physical matter. You know, this sounds like something Samuel said earlier.
Yeah.
That we have our own bring past knots, and that she's finding language for dimensions, for the dimensions. You know, it sounded to me like she was trying to describe fifth dimensional experience.
And beyond.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think DK says there's 10 dimensions. Okay. Any thoughts or questions? First up, the chemist goes to the laya or 0 point of the plane of matter with which he deals, and then stops short. The physicist or the astronomer counts by billions of miles beyond the nebulae, and then they also stop short. By way of illustration, HPP here makes the laya or 0 point a generic term representing the natural limit of conscious awareness, thus suggesting that few chemists, physicists, or astronomers ever search for or are even aware of the esoteric origins of their disciplines, right? We're not talking about that space that exists beyond what can be measured. We're talking about the actual source of their very discipline, right? In other words, it's a vertical numinal ring past not an outer, like far, far away, or in inner space, very, for the chemist who goes in and in till he can't register the shape and size anymore. It's not that kind of thing. It's a noumenal level, meaning the source of the discipline. Okay.
Oops, Samuel's got his hand up. Go ahead, Samuel.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So as you say, it just pulls us right back to that. And I just wanted to say, like, years ago, I was listening to this program where a group of chemists, and this person seems to be a PhD, and he's been in his profession for more than 2 decades. And he said, whenever chemists are trying to pin down a light form or proton or whatever you call it, and they are using these very advanced magnifying glasses, at a certain point, the subject of the whole test become very elusive. And if you are not watching, it moves. But the moment you look back on it, it becomes still. It's been very long, so I really do not remember exactly. But that was what he was saying. So looking at it and putting it into perspective, you just get to see that that's their dead end right there. They can't go forward because they don't have the tool for it. And then if you look at the spiritual man, especially places like India, where people, or anywhere in the world, someone who is striving to find himself through meditation, he too, after some time, if he's fortunate, he go into trance. And there are stages, but sometimes they say that they don't see anything and the region is empty void, although they do come back and they feel different and have wisdom, but maybe that's their own past ring pass not. And so with the physicists who fly in space, they go and they send their light billions of miles, and then they can't go any further.
Yeah, good examples of ring pass not, Okay, next up. The Simeon.
Hold it. Lynn says on the previous slide, why Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, and Libra at the middle circles?
No, I don't know that that's particularly significant. Let's see. Hang on a sec. Yeah,
It might just be identifying the 4 cardinal points.
It's the cardinal cross. Yeah, that's what it is. Indeed. Yeah, I was going to get there, BL, but you beat me to it. And
sorry, this is presented by Francis Donald.
No, it's not. The more that you all present, the better. Because there's nothing better than having a dialogue. I wonder what this Dayu Loka is here in the middle too. I don't really know these locas. We've looked at them before. She describes these, and you can tell by the quality of the description of how high they are. But yeah, and then you have these are the lower locos that represent sort of the like Dante's Inferno, right? But I wonder what this Dayu logo is. It seems other than these others. But anyway.
The white circles there are 14 of them, so that corresponds to each of the locas.
Yeah.
And that seems to be in the center.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's like our earthly experience, before you descend, into the level of the Atala Loka, it'd be like, I just don't know. Anyway, I don't want to spend time on this because I would if I was informed about it, but I don't want to just guess. So.
Okay, we got a lot of comments. Liesel says it is interesting that represents the 12 creative hierarchies or the zodiac that we go through.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Efrosini says, I understand ring pass not as a threshold, like the logoic plane of the cosmic physical plane is the threshold crossed by the 5 higher creative hierarchies. For us, the threshold can be the higher subplanes of the abstract monastic plane and the reign of the causal body.
That's great. I love that comment. Yeah, especially the one about the hierarchy, my understanding that it's always been that is truly beyond the solar system. Any ability to comprehend the nature of those first 5 hierarchies is not possible within the solar ring pass knot, that they have transcended that. Very much like you do when you move beyond the 9 initiations available in the solar system, right? And just the cosmic paths that you choose at the 6th initiation that take you out of this solar system. That's very much a ring pass knot. It's the ring pass knot of the solar system. So that's a great example. But even that is infinitely small compared to this ring pass knot that's being described on a cosmic level, right? Which is when all form, even, galaxies and, if there are multiverses, then each being who is a universe would still not be able to pass that ring pass knot until the day be with us. Remember, the day after Maha Manvantara, meaning the day after the manifested, that cycle of manifestation, right?
Okay, and then Greg says, but these points can also be any of the 12 signs divided in the mutable and fixed forms. For example, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Virgo, etc.
I think in this chart, it just means cycles. It means, the passage of and movement and the conditioning aspect. In this case, they've chosen to indicate the conditioning quality at this more numeral level of these 4 signs, right? Of the cardinal signs.
And Liesel says, I like that threshold comment.
Yeah, good.
And then Karen says, Cancer, the gate of incarnation, descending, and Capricorn, the gate of initiation, ascending.
Yeah, and those definitely have to do with these locas. I'm just not versed in the specifics. It probably, given another 50 years of this webinar, I'll probably know more about it, because we're all going to live at least that long, right? Because that's how long it's going to take. Yeah, and we'll just, gradually learn more and more about the great language of the occult, which is, this is a part of.
And then Samuel has his hand up. Go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, so looking at the image right here, I just, the way that I look at it is the out of the area will be locus, the from 1 to 7 will be the higher locus, the higher locations, and then maybe the from 8 to 14 will be the lower locus, and Satya would just be truth, maybe Parabrahma and stuff like that. So,
Well, Tara Brachman would be beyond any of these locus, because it'd be beyond any specificity. There's some indication of this in the term Brahmanda, which is a source name, Brahma being the source, but it's literally off the chart.
right.
I'd like to move on from this,
Right.
if we can. Is that okay?
Right. So if like in the when you do the Gayatri mantra, you also start with the Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, and then you go on to Tatsa. So Tatsa or Satya is just ultimate truth or ultimate reality.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Francis.
Yeah.
Liesel says from Wikipedia, Dialoka is a Sanskrit term for heavenly world. It appears in the Vedic text Shatapatha Brahmana in verses 16.6, 1.8 to 9, as well as later text. Its root is Dayu, which in the Rig Veda means heaven, shining sky.
Okay,
In another
Go ahead.
In another context, Dialoka is the realm of existence, samsara, where souls are reborn as gods and goddesses to live out a life based on one's karma before they die again, according to the Devi Bhagavata Purana.
Okay.
Sorry for murdering those words.
No, that's all right. Okay, so it's good to have a little more information about that. I'm intrigued by the fact that it's separated out here and it's made the center of this core, which can mean, very much like the point in the center of a circle. It could mean the source, a source. But like I said, I just don't know enough about the system to comment further. So thanks for that information. Okay. Where in the world are we? Yeah. The semi-initiated occultist will represent the Laya point to himself as existing on some plane, which if not physical is still conceived to the human intellect. But the full initiate knows that the ring pass knot is neither a locality, nor can it be measured by distance, but it exists in the absoluteness of infinity. Key here is the term, or one of the keys, I should say, is the term intellect, right? He says still conceivable to the human intellect. No matter how keen, is unable to penetrate unaided beyond the monastic plane. That's the nature of intellect. Even at the Buddhic plane, you're in a whole different kind of energy field. Masters of wisdom do not use intellect except to translate down from their experience or understanding or wisdom into language we can understand, such as, those masters that worked with HPB or DK and himself. Okay, next. In this infinity of the full initiate, there is neither height, breadth, nor thickness, but all is fathomless profundity, reaching down from the physical to the para, metaphysical. In using the word down, essential depth, nowhere and everywhere is meant, not depth of physical matter. In this context, para means above, even though she's using below, or supreme, which is probably better, which HPB uses to describe the, quote, fathomless profundity of the higher planes of consciousness. Here, HPB gives us a refreshing change of metaphor from the usual up and higher, using instead the terms down and depth, in order to indicate that the metaphysical ever substands the physical. All we need to do is take a look at the senses and how the senses demonstrate on the Buddhic and Atmic plane to get a sense of the fathomless profundity described by HPB. You have, especially on the Atmic, your experiences, beatitudes, the realization, perfection, all knowledge, active service. DK tells us on Atmic levels, the mental centers become fourth dimensional, which he describes as a, quote, wonderful fiery activity. Also on this level, the note of the logos begins to be heard. And yet, even at this level of awareness, the initiate is not capable of penetrating the Lipika ring past not. Did we get a reader for this?
Vivian, can you read that for us, please?
If one searches carefully through the exoteric and grossly anthropomorphic allegories of popular religions, even in these, the doctrine embodied in the circle of past not, thus guarded by the Lipika, may be dimly perceived. This one finds it even in the teachings of the Vedantin sect of the Visishtadvaita, the most tenaciously anthropomorphic in all India.
Okay, let's finish the paragraph. Reader, please.
Okay.
Actually, if Vivian could continue, she'd like.
I'll try. For we read of the released soul that, after reaching moksha, a state of bliss meaning release from bandha or bondage, bliss is enjoyed by it in a place called Paramapada, which place is not material but made of Sudasattva, the essence of which the body of Iswara, the Lord, is formed. There, muktas or jivatmas, monads who have attained moksha, are never again subject to the qualities of either matter or karma. But if they choose, for the sake of doing good to the world, they may incarnate on earth. The way to Paramapada, or the immaterial worlds from this world, is called Devayana. These voluntary reincarnations are referred to in our doctrine as Nirmanakayas, the surviving spiritual principles of men.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay, first up.
Okay, hold on just 1 second. Liesl says that it's interesting that smell is connected to idealism. So with COVID, are we losing that worldwide?
Well, I'm not sure I can comment on that. I don't think we're losing idealism worldwide. I think it's alive and well. We're moving, in spite of all the hindrances that are being thrown up, we're moving into the Aquarian age. Michael Robbins believes that COVID 19 is actually was implemented by the hierarchy in order to purify and unify humankind. You know, if the thing about a pandemic is that it affects everyone. And one of the messages becomes that we are all one, right? And that we have to approach the solution as a with a unified effort. And, you know, unified effort is not the hallmark of this time. And so it presents us with that challenge, right? And it's also just in a more metaphysical way, it's purificatory in that sense. So I don't see any evidence that idealism is threatened by this, but you know, it's interesting. I would have no doubt that there is a metaphysical implication to the loss of the sense of smell. I just, you know, couldn't say exactly what that was. You know, if we go back to, you know, smell is the highest sense. And DK verifies that in his discussion about this, the senses, right? And its relationships are emotional idealism, spiritual discernment, and as you mentioned, idealism in a level we can't even imagine. And then ultimately all knowledge, right? So just to get a sense of what smell, how it unfolds. Okay.
All right. And then that sparked a lot. She says unifying humankind means they have to invoke higher ideals to strive for.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. So in order not to lose the sense of smell, right? And you have to invoke the higher ideas. And not to lose idealism, you have to invoke. Yeah.
And then Lynn says, to carry on with this particular thread, out with the old idealism, and in with the new ideal.
Nicely said, indeed.
And then Michelle says, would the Mahatmas be considered Jivatmas or monads?
Mahatma is refers to a master who is also a teacher. It's a father. The root in it is Maha, which means great one. And it's often used in relation to the idea of father, a Mahatma. It's invariably a level of being a master. Anyone else?
Nope, that's it for right now.
Okay, so we have.
Oops, I spoke too soon.
Okay.
Samuel says, what do you think? I do feel the simplest way to put this is to say that by parametaphysical, it's referring to space itself.
Space in the abstract sense, not in outer space, but that noumenal substance, which is Mula Prakriti. And so that certainly would be a level of para metaphysical, but you know, these are metaphysical is a very inexact term. It just means beyond the physical, right? Meta, super physical, and then higher and higher. So you have the higher and higher version of beyond the physical. It's not an exact term, like some of these terms that we're looking at, especially these Hindu terms, of which, by the way, this paragraph is full, right? And we'll take a look. Anyone else?
Nope, that appears to be it for the moment.
Okay. First up, after reaching moksha, a state of bliss, meaning release from bandha or bondage. This is a fascinating concept or state of being. So let's read a little more about it. Can we get a reader, please?
Yes, Karen, can you read that for us, please?
Moksha, Sanskrit from Mukth, to release, set free, probably from the verbal root much. Freedom from sentient life or the remainder of a manvantara. Equivalent to nirvana, mukti, the palace of love of the Zohar, the Gnostic pleroma of eternal light, the Chinese Nippang, and the Burmese Naipan, when spirit, a monad or a spiritual radical, has so grown in manifestation that it has first become a man and is set free interiorly, inwardly, and from a man has become a planetary spirit or Daihan Chohan, or Lord of Meditation, and has gone still higher to become interiorly a Brahman, and from a Brahman to the Para-Brahman for its hierarchy, then it is absolutely perfected, free, released, perfected for that great period of time, which to us seems almost an eternity. So long is it, virtually incomputable by the human intellect. This is the absolute, limited in comparison with things still more immense, still more sublime. But so far as we can think of it, released or freed from the chains or bonds of material existence. One thus released or freed is called Jivan Mukta, freed monad, which is never again during that manvantara subject to the qualities of either matter or karma. But if these beings choose for the sake of doing good in the world, they may incarnate on earth as Nirmanakayas.
Thank you, Karen. So, they're graduates of the entire system. So as a rule, though not always, they come back to help others move forward, right? Any thoughts or questions about this definition? Okay, next, bliss is enjoyed by it in a place called Paramapada, which place is not material, but made of Sudasattva, the essence of which the body of Ishvara, the Lord, is formed. Now, don't let these Sanskrit terms throw you. Translated, we have something like, bliss is enjoyed in a place of pure spirit, beyond the reach of karma, made of a noumenal substance of pure spiritual essence, from which the body of the highest manifest deity is formed. Okay, could we get a reader for these two definitions that also appear in this segment?
Scott, can you read that for us, please?
Paramapada, Sanskrit. Paramapada, highest state of or position. That which is not material, but loftily spiritual, in and to which appertain Jivana Muktas, or monads who have attained freedom from karma. Thus they attain the highest condition or state in any hierarchical sense. Sudhasattva, Sanskrit from Sudha, pure, plus sattva, goodness, pure goodness, reality per se, a state of conscious spiritual egoity or egoship, and at the same time pure spiritual essence. Considered from the substance viewpoint, it is an ultra-material essence which is to us invisible, yet on its own plane luminous, if not indeed light itself. Of this stuff or essence, the bodies of the highest Dhyanis and the gods are formed. It is spiritual substance without adulteration of the differentiated matters of the lower cosmic planes.
Thank you, Scott. So the difference between these two is that Paramapada is the highest attainable state of consciousness, whereas Sudasattva is that same high consciousness, but also indicates the pure quality of the substance of which such a one is composed. Next.
Hold it.
Go ahead.
Efrosini says there are two types of release: liberation from the world, but also liberation of the world itself. The last is the freedom that the enlightened soul brings.
Nicely said, indeed. And the first precedes the second. You know, you're released, and then you come back and help release the world, right?
And then Samuel says Mahatma, which means great soul, also applies to very good people who are following the Dharma life. For example, Mahatma Gandhi was called that, but nevertheless, he was not a complete awakened man himself, just a serious practitioner.
Yeah, that's a good point. In exoteric usage, it can mean a great person, you know, and that's a really good example, you know, because Gandhi was not a master, you know, and yet he was revered for what he did and was therefore called Mahatma Gandhi, right? Indeed. Thanks for that. Okay.
And Liesel says he was also a father of India, relating to the idea of being a father.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a quality of fatherhood connected with the phrase for sure. Okay. Next, but if they choose for the sake of doing good to the world, they may incarnate on earth. And the footnote tells us that those who do choose to reincarnate are called Nirmanakayas. But as we'll learn in Dhyana 1, Nirmanakayas are much more than just those who choose to reincarnate for the benefit of humankind. Could we get a reader for this, please?
Yes, Michelle, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. The Nirmanakayas, the divine contemplatives, this is the receptive group which receives impression from Shambhala in relation to the planetary creative purpose. Then they, on their own level of atmic activity, build through the contemplative meditation a vast reservoir of potent energies which are impregnated with the qualities of the seven energies of the seven planetary rays. They are the custodians of life under the direct inspiration of the Buddhas of activity, and they spend the eons of their planetary service, A, in active contemplation of the divine purpose, B, in a developed receptivity to that aspect of the purpose, which must be expressed through the medium of the divine plan, and thus presented to the hierarchy. In developing the spirit of sevenfold receptivity, which will make them a channel for the inflow of ray energies from Shambhala into the hierarchy. Their united aura and area of influence and the extent of their magnetic and dynamic radiation correspond roughly to the aura of the planet itself. They contain within their ranks members who are identified with the lords of the seven rays.
And can we get a reader for this, please?
Yes, I'll read it.
Finishes the quote.
Okay. There are, in a peculiar sense, the creative agents of life as it streams forth from Shambhala into all the aspects, areas, kingdoms, and fields of manifestation. This they are enabled to do through sustained, concentrated, intensive, and dynamic meditation. They are necessarily a second ray group, as the second ray is the ray at present of the planetary logos, but they focus their meditation largely along first ray lines, which is a subray of the second ray in this solar system, as you know, because they are the creative agents of life itself and the knowers and the custodians of the will of the planetary logos as it works itself out in manifestation. They are the source and reality of planetary invocation and evocation.
Okay, so we have this chart here, and they exist at this level, linking Shambhala and hierarchy. We can get some understanding of this linking aspect when we look at the new group of world servers, who are also called spiritual agents, which link humanity with the hierarchy, right? They're invariably incarnate, and they work to bring the manifestation of the hierarchy into humanity, right? In that same way, the Nirmanakayas work with the will aspect of the purpose of deity in order to influence the hierarchical plans. So you can see what an incredibly highly placed level these Nirmanakayas are, right? And then you have another linking group here, divine cosmic intermediaries that link our planet to extraplanetary sources, right? In each case, they're linking. And I like this illustration over here. It's not a direct illustration of Nirmanakayas, but you could get a sense of the linking. Any thoughts or questions about this chart or anything connected? Okay. Any thoughts or questions on anything in this paragraph? Before we read this,
I have, if I may, I have a simple question. This is Martha. Are we, this term Nirmanakaya is exactly the term used in the DK material. That is, in this class, we've been stepping down from extraplanetary life, and as we step down, we've just come to that understanding of the Nirmanakayas. Is that how we understand this? Or was there something said earlier that indicate the Nirmanakayas actually take literal physical form?
Yeah, it can be confusing because it's a term that literally identifies those who voluntarily reincarnate. But in order to do this voluntarily, you have to have transcended or broken, as they say, the chains of samsara, which are the necessity to reincarnate. So you're free of that realm of reincarnation, right? And then you have, so there's that definition, which is the more commonly found one, right? And then you have this very specific definition which is described by DK here, right? I would say that the two circles overlap. I'm not talking about these circles. I'm talking about the circles of this high divine contemplative level and this this idea of those who incarnate to help humanity, right? That they definitely overlap. You know, it's possible for divine contemplatives to incarnate, but in some ways it seems like a different purpose, doesn't it? I mean, it seems like this group would be not in incarnation and would be working, you know, as he says here, in active contemplation of the divine purpose and working to facilitate, acting as a medium to facilitate that divine purpose for the hierarchy. So it's very, very highly placed. I suspect that we're really looking at two different definitions of a related terminology here. Glad you brought that up, Martha.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, Samuel's got his hand up. Go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, and also, I have the feeling that the Nirmanakaya, I think there might be stages of that of them. You know, I think in the highest sense, it will be those who have actually breaking the circle of being compelled to be reborn on Earth, and then decide to come here out of empathy or sympathy to help humanity. But there are smaller versions, at least to some extent, there are categories of them where a soul that have done great work on this earth and have reached enlightenment to, you know, and may have some control over their astral life or whatever life. They might come back here to help a certain function, maybe certain movement, maybe certain new religion or certain spiritual movement. That's what I think. Because if you read one of the founders, there were three original founders, right? The Orca and Madame Blavatsky and the man from New York. I forgot his name. There's one of HPB books. She mentioned that he was in Nimanakaya, and so we can. It is hard to think that he has broken the circle of reincarnation altogether, and yet he was here and helped. So based on that perspective, I think there might be categories of them.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. Anyone else?
Yeah, Vivian says there was an extraordinary man who died in 1969, Meher Baba, known in India as the avatar of the age.
Okay, he was, considered a master by many. Yeah. In some ways you could say, all masters, who incarnate, such as Neem Karoli Baba or Ramakrishna, who I would call the two great Indian masters of recent times, are inherently Nirmanakayas. But I would be hesitant to just to give them that title. I have the sense that there is something very specific about this term beyond just, those who teach, those who reincarnate and teach. I don't know. Okay. Anyone else?
No, that's all we've got right now.
And we're out of time.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you all. It's great discussion. I love it that you have that you jump in and participate. Feel free to, sometimes, those who are most hesitant to say anything have the most to say. Not always, but don't feel constrained. Go ahead and jump into the conversation. And as I've said many times, it really is a privilege to host this group. So thank you for coming. And now for dates, where I think we have a bit more of a break than usual now because of this early.
Right. The next Secret Doctrine, we're back on schedule for several months. So it'll be on the third Sunday of February, on February 20th. And before that, we'll have the next Secret Teaching of All Ages on the first Sunday, which will be 6 February. And we've had one of each now. There's been a couple of false starts and everything, but we're using the same link in a recurring series for both of these webinars. B, you no longer get the notices from Zoom like we used to get with the webinar platform because we've discontinued that, but we are sending out a constant contact announcement. And for those of you who know it's the first or third Sunday and you're looking for the link and you can't find it, we have the announcement posted full-time on www.moirafederation, all one word, .com. We have the weekly schedule there and we have the announcement. So there's two different avenues to get to the link.
Right. Thanks, VL. It's very simple. If you can't find the link, go to moirafederation.com and on the upper left column, there, click on the name of the webinar you want to join. And you can do this literally a minute before you join. And then click the link and you're in. You'll be in the waiting room. So that's how I get in, because I didn't get the link yet either, even though I signed up with constant, constant contact.
Constant contact.
I always say constant comment and then go drink a cup of tea, but actually constant contact. But you don't need that. If you don't feel like if you don't get the link, you can't get in. Just go to moirafederation.com and you'll easily find the link there. So yeah, okay. So it's going to be 3 weeks until our next time together for, and we'll see you on, is that right? 3 weeks or is it 4 weeks? What's the first Sunday in February?
The first Sunday in February is the 6th.
I think that's 4 weeks.
It is, it's 4 weeks because we have that extra little, there's 5 Sundays in January, so.
That's a record between the two. So, okay. Be well.
Thank you, everybody.
And we'll see you then. Bye. All.
Bye.